everyone to introduce yourself.
I'm Linda Green.
I'm Julie Midkiff.
Christine Gardner.
William Clausen.
Sister Barbara.
Cherise Smith.
Margot McMillan.
Catherine Park.
Pippa Letsky.
Barbara Ross.
Thank you. Okay, now you can continue.
And I'll just stop here. Does anyone have any questions or comments so far? What I've said? Anybody want to argue with me, or are you crazy? Okay, well, I'll continue, and please feel free to interrupt. And
I have some organizational questions, but I'll wait
Yeah.
until you're done with your issues to ask those questions.
okay, well, maybe after this little next piece,
Sure.
you'll have a question. All right, so how we work with the corporation is probably different from what you've learned in the other two classes that you had already about, your own investment, the green bonds and equity and all that. So I like to call us the boots on the ground work with the corporations themselves. So we buy shares in certain corporations, and here, of course, in the Midwest, we have 5 companies in St. Louis that we work with. We have all bought shares in those companies. Some companies we have a very long relationship with, 20-something years, and others basically just started maybe 5 years ago. So the first rule is to prize the dialogue over the debate with the company. We do our homework on what they're saying about their environmental or social impacts. So the way you do that is to go to their corporate social responsibility report, which most companies have now due to the demand of their investors or the general public. Transparency is the in word in corporations and in the general public today. You open the newspaper, transparency, the public wants to know. So we go to what the corporation is saying about themselves. The corporate social responsibility report, the 10K or the annual report, and if you're a shareholder, you should get a 10K in the mail when it's time for you to vote. Or now it comes on the web, but that's fine. Those are now open on the web. You don't even have to be an investor. Anybody can go to their website and get a copy of their 10K report. That has excellent information in it about the broad strokes of how much the company is paying for litigations, what litigations they're involved in, what they see as their risk ahead with social or environmental risk. And a lot of companies now will mention drought, water scarcity, floods, those sorts of things. Climate change. That has actually, the words climate change has actually appeared in annual reports. Yes. So most companies are not deniers anymore of those 2 words, that there is climate change. In fact, some corporations, especially the agricultural ones, are really worried about climate change. We can go into that later. If you have questions, we can come back to that. The third document that you can get from the company is their proxy report. And that also has financial information. It has how their board is elected, how their executives are paid. It's more governance stuff. It tells you what your shares are going to be, what your dividends are going to be for the year, those sorts of things. So boring reading, but if you like that sort of thing, that's where you want to go. You're looking for diversity on the board, women, minority peoples, etc. That's where you want to look, is both the proxy report and the annual report. Now, so we do the research with the company, on the company. Then we, as a team with, all of our people who are shareholders through ICCR all over the country. For instance, we own shares in Monsanto. We probably have 25 groups that all over our country that work with us in St. Louis on Monsanto. And it's a wonderful resource. We've all learned a lot about the company. The company has learned a lot about us. And I'm going to say it again, it's dialogue. So we go and we have a clear ask of the company. Monsanto, we want you to do some very specific work on your consumption of water, your recycling of water. What is your looking at the future as far as your water use? How are you going to tackle this problem that is so endemic to your company? No water, no company. It's very easy for a company like Monsanto or Dow, any kind of an agricultural company, to see that. It's a material risk to their future. So it's both the moral issue, again, and it's the practical issue. It's doable for Monsanto to go and measure their water. They have started with their seed production sites, which there's some all over the world. Most impressive to us was what they did in Peru the last 2 years. Peru, which has some areas which are, jungle and some which is very dry. They have a production site. They have done recycling all of the water that they're using and filtering it so that they can continue to produce the seed, but with billions of gallons of less water than they were using before. They're doing that in every production site they have, and next they are looking at all of their facilities, their offices, which is where a lot of companies start. That's a doable thing. Put in your water savers, your flow toilets and all that stuff. And now Monsanto, this year of 2015, is working with their contracted farmers on saving water, drip irrigation, nozzles closer to the ground, more experimentation with the growing seeds, and that sort of thing. So it's the dialogue with the company, seeing what they can do, they do it. Sounds easy. Any questions so far about that?
Well done for starting the dialogue.
Thank you, thank
Yes.
you. All right. Second step, so the first step is the dialogue. We have to do our homework, then the company does their homework. Second step, if the company is not moving forward, we write a shareholder proposal, which will get printed in the proxy book for the shareholders to vote on once a year. Okay? Again, if you're a shareholder, you can vote. Or you can tell your manager how you want him or her to vote. So that's if the company is not moving forward. The proposals are usually things like, okay, give us a report on how much water you're using, consuming, wasting, recycling, what are your goals for the future. We want a report in 6 months, and again, it's the transparency issue. As much as you can give us, that's it. The shareholders vote on it. So now this runs into the SEC rules. the Securities Exchange Commission in Washington DC. There are some rules about that, like, okay, the first year you put in the proxy resolution, you have to get 3% on the vote of all the voters, except for those who abstain. But you have to get 3% in order to bring it back the next year to the company in the proxy vote. Then the second year it's 6%. Then the third year it's 10%. So, it's pretty easy to get 3%. We have gotten 52% vote at Ameren, our utility in St. Louis, about 4 years ago on their coal ash problems. And water, again, the water use. We were so floored, the company was floored. We're sitting there at the stockholder meeting and Mr. Voss, the CEO, announces the vote, 52%. I'm like, oh my gosh, now what do we do? So it's really great because that shows that the shareholders are very, very concerned about coal ash, about their water on the Missouri River and all of our rivers. And the company has worked with us ever since then to be more transparent on what they're putting in the rivers from the coal ash, and the fact that they have admitted that they have impacts on our rivers. Thermal impacts, the hot water from the coal plants. They have also, they had already started this plan, but instead of coal ash ponds, they're putting in the dry landfills. So this should be a safer technique to keep this stuff out of our rivers. Yes.
How do you hold them to accountability for that, what did you call it?
The resolution.
The resolution that was
proposal.
passed. How do you hold them to accountability for that?
Good question. We come back to them like 6 months later and we'll say, what have you done? Give us another report. How are you testing the water outside of your plants and, that sort of thing. And where's the transparency of what's in the water? Then,
Do you ask them for results?
oh yeah,
Show us.
yeah,
Show us the data that shows you've had an
Right.
impact
yeah.
on.
Yeah, and that data should be available to every Missourian. It should be public data. If they refuse to do that, or they say, oh, well, the shareholders really didn't mean it, or something, then we can go to the press and we can, bring this back. That's the main, or we can refile the resolution the second year again, see, which they really don't want you to do. So that we did file the same resolution on the coal ash the second year with Ameren, and we got like 46% the second year. So they don't want you to do that at all. But since they were doing a little progress, we did not go to the press and, say Ameren has come back on their shareholders. They're not paying attention to their own shareholders.
So you find that these companies kind of stonewall a little bit on these things, that they try to have a work slow up or something
Yeah.
that they, so even though the stockholders have passed this resolution at the shareholders' meetings, and so then they are beholden to do that, but they can just stall around, they can just
Yeah.
stonewall the process because the company itself maybe doesn't really want to do that.
Right, right.
So you have to constantly, even though you do this at a shareholder meeting, you have to constantly push this corporation.
Yeah.
Isn't there also always the issue that the reports are in-house reports as opposed to somebody from outside the company making the report?
That has to be, that's one of the the final things that we ask for is third-party verification. Yeah, an outsider verifying what is going in the river, or, you know, with Monsanto, your consumption of water and so on.
And is that a part of the original proposal that you include that?
Yes,
Third-party verification?
yeah.
Then they must really hate that.
They don't like that. And that does take time, because most companies do have to start somewhere. And I gave Monsanto as a good example of where they started first with their seed production sites. And, you know, which, again, they're all over the world. So they do have to start somewhere and put in the right technology and the plan and get the employees on board. And
Are you all interested in their genetically modifying of seeds, their genetic modification of seeds? Are you concerned about that?
yeah, well, we are concerned, but we have found that because it is endemic or integral to their business, it is very difficult to write a shareholder